Welcome to the Better Call Saul Montages tier list, where we rank every montage featured in Better Call Saul. I'm your host, the Critical Crackpot, and thank you for joining me as we explore the wondrous world of Better Call Saul montages. I'm no mathematician, but if my calculations are correct, there's about 50 montages littered throughout Better Call Saul. So join me as I painstakingly examine each one and categorize it by one of 4 tiers. Before we go any further, remember this list is entirely subjective, so let's get a nice conversation flowing in the comments, and let me know what your favorite Better Call Saul montage is down below. Without further delay, let's dive in. Meeting Gene. Our first montage sets the melancholic tone of Gene's world, and upon a first-time viewing, it's easy to find the humor in it. This dual-sided montage not only emphasizes the lonely state of Jimmy's mind, but it also underlines how much he misses the life of Saul Goodman. For a character who prides himself on showmanship, seeing him reduced to a Cinnabon manager is both hilarious and depressing. This was a dark but humorous way to open up the series, coupled with the eeriness of the Ink Spot's music. A tier. Jimmy's date. After a misunderstanding with Tuco, Jimmy goes on a date to forget about the skater boy's broken legs. This montage heavily relies on visuals to tell us what's going on in Jimmy's head, and it also shows us the state of his morality versus Saul's twisted sense of morality.
Let justice be done, though the heavens fall.
Hearing the crunching cracks of the breadsticks in this scene mixed with the upbeat music is a great way to illustrate Jimmy's guilt. It's a pretty short montage, but it says a lot about Jimmy's character very early on in the series. B tier.
It's showtime, folks.
Jimmy's public defender montage. This is an effective montage that demonstrates all the bullshit Jimmy endures to make an honest buck. This is paced much quicker than the previous 2 montages, but it sticks out like morning wood because of Bob Odenkirk's charming performance. The music fits well with the quickly paced visuals, and when everything comes together, this makes for a pretty enjoyably fun montage. We see more of Mike, Bill Oakley is introduced, and we get a couple laughs along the way. Overall, a shining example of what a Better Call Saul montage should be. I award this montage an S tier. Jimmy's search for the Kettlemans. Naturally, after the rise, there's always the fall, and after our first S tier of the video, this montage just ain't it, Chief. Make no mistake, this is not a bad montage by any means, but it's pretty bland if I'm being honest. Has a few cool visuals and country music if you're into that kind of stuff. Overall, not a great montage, but not terrible either. C tier. The Gimme Jimmy Jello montage. Here we have a brief montage where Jimmy butters up his potential new elder clients with Jello. Not much I can say about this one, but it's nice seeing Casa Tranquila before the big Visuals are okay, music is pretty stylistic, but not much of a montage to talk about. C tier. Mike locates the Kettleman's stolen million. This is our first Mike montage of the series, and it does not disappoint. Visuals aren't too crazy as the camera mostly sticks with Mike the whole time while he surveys the Kettle home, but primarily this is a stealthy montage focusing on Mike's intellect coupled with some great music perfect for a home invasion. It communicates mostly through visuals and features no dialogue, and if I'm being honest, this is Mike's best montage in the entire show.
Jesus.
Despite it being slower compared to what we've seen so far, this is still an extremely enjoyable montage nonetheless. A tier. Jimmy and Marco's epic scam montage. A brilliant montage showing us the environment that Slippin' Jimmy thrives in. Watching Jimmy embrace his old habits is both entertaining and tragic, knowing he's another step closer to the world of black and white. Furthermore, this is another fast-paced montage of elaborate scheming, showing us everything that Slippin' Jimmy lives for. Visually, we have some gorgeous shots like this colorful kaleidoscope visual, and it's complemented with some old Chicago-sounding trumpets. I like this montage because it shows us where Jimmy developed his persuasive motor mouth, and it adds more context of who he was prior to Albuquerque. Also, this montage illustrates just how sharp and cunning he really is when he plays by his own rules. All around, a fantastic montage that personifies Jimmy's addictive scheming habit. S tier. Gene closes up Cinnabon. Season 2 starts off with a warm montage that welcomes us back into the depressing world of Gene Takovic. Those who've closed a restaurant or eatery know how closing feels, and this montage kinda speaks to those people. Visually, this is nothing special again, more of the same Gene stuff, but the music here is serenely beautiful. In short, this is a swift montage that underlines how sad and lonely Gene really is. A tier. Kim desperately tries to claw her way out of doc review. Our first Kim montage of the series, and it illustrates just how relentless she is. Visually, this is a montage of Kim trying to polish up the shitty situation she found herself in, and the Spanish version of Frank Sinatra's My Way epitomizes her diligent work ethic. I can't play the music for copyright reasons, but it does feel tailored to Kim and her unwavering determination to escape the treacherous depths of doc review. Overall, this is an exceptional montage with excellent music, a fast pace, and spectacular visuals. S tier. Jimmy's inflatable montage. This is a particularly upbeat montage with a quicker pace as Jimmy tries his hardest to get fired from Davis and Maine. It's a colorfully stylized adventure as Jimmy jumps through many hoops hoping to secure his signing bonus. Once again, this montage relies on Bob Odenkirk's performance, and as always, he never disappoints. It includes a variety of eye-catching visuals in addition to the great music and overall funny nature of the montage. My favorite aspect has to be the visuals because they're expressively flamboyant, showing us the colorful suits that Jimmy later uses for Saul Goodman. All around, a remarkably entertaining montage that's outstandingly memorable in its own right. S tier. Jimmy swaps the numbers. After Kim loses Mesa Verde to Chuck and HHM, Jimmy deliberately transposes his brother's documents and sabotages him. One of the most important montages in the series, but overall pretty bland. Visuals aren't anything to go nut for, but there are a few extreme close-ups here and there that look swell, but for the most part, it's just a standard montage with good music. B tier. The border crossing montage. A pretty unique montage that tries to tickle my fancy by being a continuous long take. If you ask me, this montage isn't up to Polo's standards, and it's a little boring, but that doesn't make it a bad montage. It's mildly entertaining, but it's not the greatest montage you'll see from this show. The way they tried to hide the cut right here really bothers me, but other than that, this montage is fine. I like the neat popsicle stick visual at the end, but this montage is mid. B tier. Gene opens up Cinnabon. Another bleakly upbeat montage as Jimmy continues his boring, monotonous life as Gene the Cinnabon Machine. This is yet another brief montage with good music and visuals that once again emphasize how much he misses the life of Saul Goodman. The shot of him riding up the escalator makes this entire montage for me, but once again, it's pretty average. B tier. Mike disassembles a car. Just as Mike's ready to kill Hector, a mysterious being stops him and he searches his car for clues. A somewhat interesting montage with cool music I can't play, but overall it's kinda meh. This montage mainly shows off Mike's hidden speedster abilities, but also hints at more of his superpowers seen later in Phase 3. C tier. Jimmy's arrest. After staging his own elaborate scheme, Chuck has Jimmy arrested for breaking into his house. This is yet another brief montage, but also a huge moment for the series because it officially pits Chuck and Jimmy against one another. Obviously, seeing Jimmy on the other side of the law is both heartbreaking and humiliating, and the look on his face says it all. The montage itself isn't too crazy, it has some good visuals here and there, but not much else I'm afraid. B tier. Kim's morning routine. Following Jimmy's arrest, Kim wakes up on her office couch and freshens herself up in the gym across the street. This is definitely the most underlooked montage on this list, and it's a montage some people might even forget about. Visually, this is a stunning montage that sort of emulates the visual style of Edgar Wright with all the quick cuts. The hasty pace of this montage mixed with the creative visuals make for a bizarre but enthralling visual experience that'll slap harder than Will Smith.
Nice!
The music is also some of the strangest shit we've heard so far, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't fit. In short, we have another brief but effective montage showing us the rapid pace of Kim's morning. A tier. Mike digs up the Good Samaritan. In an attempt to disrupt Hector's business, Mike indirectly gets a Good Samaritan killed, and out of guilt, he searches for the man's body. Quite a boring montage with no real visual flair, but we do get a glimpse at Mike's duplication ability. In a previous montage, we saw him move at supersonic speed, but this time he uses the Doctor Strange technique from Infinity War.
Let's go! Let's go! Oh my god.
To be honest, there's really not much of a montage to talk about, but hey, if the wiki lists this as a montage, then I guess so do I. C tier. Jimmy manipulates the residents of Sandpiper. In a wild attempt to secure his share of the Sandpiper settlement, Jimmy manipulates his elder clients and turns everyone against poor Mrs. Landry. No matter how many times I watch it, this montage will always upset me because it was the first time in the series I couldn't get behind Jimmy and his latest get-rich scheme. In my previous Better Call Saul video, I mentioned that Jimmy's a character who's purely motivated by money, and this montage is a great example of seeing the lengths he'll go to in order to secure the bag. This isn't a montage with any striking visuals, but it is quite gripping to see Jimmy go through with this awful scheme. In a nutshell, this is yet another standard montage with some funny moments, but for the most part, it's excruciatingly painful to see Mrs. Landry's heart break. B tier. Nacho makes placebo pills. A rare montage that solely focuses on Nacho and his nail-biting plan to swap Hector's pills. This is actually a pretty cool montage because it feels more like a montage you'd see in Breaking Bad rather than in Saw. The descriptive visuals absorb you into Nacho's world as he makes some sugar pills, then relentlessly practices his throwing technique to no avail. It's definitely more of a slower montage, but the visuals combined with the hushed strumming of the guitar gives this montage a distinct identity. B tier. Chuck destroys his home. Following a severely tragic relapse, Chuck seeks to remove all electricity from his house. This tragic montage has some okay visuals, but I especially love the painful way it utilizes music. After Chuck put in the work to get better and actually started to change, the people around him couldn't believe he was capable of doing so, and that caused him to spiral. Sound familiar? One thing I have to mention about this montage is its brilliant use of the symphonic horns. The horns are used as a leitmotif for Chuck falling victim to his mental illness, and the sound of the horns are the sound of his unfortunate defeat. These same horns are used again briefly in the first episode of Season 4, as Jimmy looks at his brother's burnt estate. This particular montage is also a lot slower than the others, but it gradually builds and builds towards a heartbreaking conclusion. Like I said, this montage isn't visually surprising, but Dave Porter's original score and Michael McKean's harrowing performance significantly upgrade this montage. A tier. Gene's trip to the hospital. After an accident at work, Gene's carted off to a nearby hospital for a checkup. Opening up Season 4, we have another gloomy montage as Gene continues to live in a perpetual state of fear. Nothing too visually stunning, but the music in this montage is especially remarkable because it references Jimmy, Saul, and Gene. Overall, another mid-montage that has the same old Gene stuff we're used to seeing. B tier. Mike Ehrmantraut, security consultant. After Gus agrees to launder some of Mike's money, Mike works at Madrigal legitimately and checks the durability of their security. Not much goes on during this odd montage except your typical Mike stuff. Dave Porter's original score, however, does come in clutch with some funky music, but the montage itself is pretty forgettable. C tier. Maddie's montage. A simple yet brief montage that takes place in the past as a young Mike pours cement and lets his son write his name in it. Decent visuals and music despite its short length, but still kinda meh overall. C tier. the Street Life montage. One of my personal favorite montages in the entire series. This groovy adventure follows Jimmy as he sells drop phones to the patrons of the doghouse. Another perfect montage in my eyes that has colorful visuals and groovy music that reference the foot fiend himself, Quentin Tarantino. We got his infamous trunk shot, and this version of Street Life was featured in Jackie Brown, one of his most underlooked films. Oh, shut up. Anyway, Street Life is another example of everything a Better Call Saul montage should be. It's entertaining, it's visually stunning, and the music is groovy as f***.
Booyah!
S tier. Something Stupid. A dual-sided montage that follows Jimmy and Kim as they traverse different paths and slowly grow apart from each other. This is yet another perfect montage coupled with excellent visuals and beautiful music. The choice of music and the visuals perfectly encapsulate Jimmy and Kim's relationship, and it's entertaining to see their perspectives parallel each other in a unique way. There's even little details I love about this montage, like Kim keeping her foot over in Jimmy's half of the screen, or Jimmy pouring wine into Kim's glass from his side of the screen. Aside from that, Something Stupid also spans over the course of 9 months, showing us what Jimmy was up to during his suspension, and showing us nearly all of Kim's busy work with Mesa Verde. Overall, Something Stupid is one of the series' strongest montages, and probably the most memorable one in the series. S tier. Ziegler and his crew prepare for work. A different kind of montage showing us the construction crew's daily routine of constructing Gus's super lab. This is a pretty bland montage that has some unusual copyrighted music, but other than that it's nothing to go wild for. Obviously it's awesome to see the birth of the super lab, but the montage itself just isn't too engaging in my opinion. C tier. Jimmy's bus montage. In a desperate attempt to exonerate Huel, Jimmy writes a ton of fake letters on a bus ride to Coushatta, Louisiana. Here we have a hilariously upbeat montage of Jimmy engaging in some of his typical chicanery. Visually, this montage won't blow your socks off, but the pacing, the music, and Bob Odenkirk's acting substantially elevate this montage. This is also one of those montages where I watched it for the first time and I asked myself,
what's he up to, man? What's he doing?
Then by the time I saw the payoff, I couldn't help but crack a big smile. A tier. Welcome to Gene's World. Ah yes, the last season opener featuring Gene. Again, we're treated to more of the same Gene stuff and not much else. There is one shot I like of the gate being opened as we're welcomed back into Gene's joyless life, but nothing special here besides the eerie music. B tier. The Magic Man montage. After getting his law license back, Jimmy hopes to establish a clientele through his mobile phone connections. Here we have a pretty hysterical montage as Saul Goodman emerges as a lawyer for the first time. There aren't any intricate visuals in this montage, but it is colorfully stylized to express the flamboyant showmanship of Saul Goodman. The jazzy music in this montage was also a nice touch, but I'm constantly reminded of that bizarre Christmas movie where Tyler James Williams gets crunk to this song. Overall, an entertaining montage that gets better every time you see it. A tier. The 50% off montage. Due to Saul Goodman offering 50% off all non-violent felonies, Beavis and Butthead engage in some degeneracy. By far the dumbest montage we have on this list, but still somehow oddly entertaining. A montage with breakneck pacing mixed with some head-banging music, and I won't lie, first time I saw this montage, I contracted a severe case of donkey brains. Those who want to simulate the experience of doing hardcore drugs, watch this montage and contact your local DARE officer for a free t-shirt. B tier. Ants eating ice cream. After Nacho forces Jimmy to drop his ice cream cone, nature comes and runs its course. Uniquely entertaining to any other montage on the show because of its practical use of ants. Yeah, you heard me right. When I first saw this montage, I thought it was a practical effect, but to my surprise, the Better Call Saul Insider podcast proved me wrong, and this tweet did too. In addition to the ants storming the ice cream cone, the music in this montage is just straight up yodeling, and it fits. When the ice cream cone, the ants, and the yodeling all come together, it makes for a pretty satisfying montage that symbolizes the idea of cause and effect. Stylistically, this weird montage carved out its own distinct identity and became one of the series' most impressive montages. A tier. Jimmy's Thrifty Adventure. Stumbling upon a dusty thrift shop, Jimmy specifically looks for something heavy. Yet another one of those montages where I watched it for the first time, and I was left scratching my head. Fortunately, the next montage has the payoff, but this montage is still pretty awesome in its own right. Nothing too complex in terms of visuals, but seeing Jimmy explore the thrift shop is pretty funny, especially when you don't know what he's looking for. The music also features some sublime steel drums to bless our ears and enhance the atmosphere. All in all, I really like this brief montage, but it's fairly basic compared to other montages. B tier. Jimmy tosses bowling balls at Howard's car. In order to make himself feel better, Jimmy yoinks some bowling balls over at Howard's Jaguar. This is the payoff to the previous montage we saw earlier in the episode, and if you ask me, this is barely a montage, and more like a short stealth mission featuring some really good music. Somewhat funny to see Jimmy's spiteful plan unfold, but it's not a crazy series of events. Overall, it's an adequate montage that's better than the C tier status. B tier. Mike rigs a cell phone to charge. After waking up with a dead phone in a little village, Mike tries crafting a cell phone charger in order to contact Gus. This is a very short montage, but another montage nonetheless. Not much to say other than it's Mike living humble by not using his laser eyes to charge the phone battery. C tier. Saul saves Mr. Acker's property from being demolished. When Mesa Verde tries to buy off Mr. Acker and destroy his home, Kim steps in and recruits Saul Goodman to help. More of a montage that's geared towards comedy, and it's fine for what it is. Not every montage needs striking visuals to be a good montage, and you'll see what I mean shortly. B tier.
So, roll sound.
Rolling.
Camera.
Ready.
And action.
Jimmy directs his TV commercials. In order to win against Mesa Verde, Jimmy creates a series of television commercials to use against them. A wildly hilarious montage that mainly focuses on Bob Odenkirk's humorous performance as he interacts with his actors. Not a montage that has any complex visuals, but it instead focuses on Saul and his motor mouth. In short, Bob Odenkirk's electrifying energy really shines in this montage, and it makes for a captivatingly good time. A tier. Gus and Nacho torture Los Pollos Hermanos. Hoping to secure an award in customer service, Gus helps Nacho destroy one of his chicken franchises. A clever montage that rapidly builds towards an explosive finale. Once again, feels more akin to a Breaking Bad montage, with the music being remarkably haunting and exotic. Cuts back and forth between both Giga Chads as they play their part in the restaurant's destruction. Altogether, this is a strange montage that I enjoyed thoroughly. A tier. The Bagman montage. To no one's surprise, this is one of the series' best montages that has everything you'd expect from a Better Call Saul montage. Fantastic visuals, excellent music so good you can hear Mom's spaghetti if you listen close enough. A rich and lively montage that's especially vibrant despite Mike and Jimmy's dire circumstances. Ends abruptly but brilliantly as Jimmy drops his bags to the ground and the music cuts out. Also filled with eye-catching landscapes and images that are beautifully shot and edited together. Bravo, Vince. S tier. Something Stupid 2, Electric Boogaloo. Harkening back to one of the series' strongest montages, we revisit the Halo 2 vertical split-screen view as Kim and Jimmy anxiously worry about each other's well-being. Instead of singing something stupid this time, it's the two singers humming the lovely tune of the song, and it's perfect. Shots also mirror each other again, like Jimmy forcing down a nice gulp of piss versus Kim drinking a nice glass of water. A very brief montage, but a great way to open up this episode. S tier. Saul's home gets repossessed. Opening up Season 6, we have an eerily tragic montage of Saul's mansion being ripped apart. This montage in particular mimics the destruction of Chuck's home in a pretty cool way. For starters, the tune of Wine and Roses reintroduces the leitmotif of symphonic horns that signify the idea of being defeated. Chuck had those same horns during his montage, and now Jimmy has his own symphonic trumpet horns. However, this time, Jimmy isn't the one ripping apart his house, but the federal government is, and now the fun is officially over. Throughout the montage, there's many Easter eggs from prior seasons littered everywhere, and it's terrific to see. I also loved seeing where Saul lived during Breaking Bad, and this simple montage added more context to Jimmy's gaudy persona. Overall, another hauntingly beautiful montage that didn't disappoint. S tier. Planting a fake bag of coke in Howard's locker. In this tense montage, Jimmy and Kim infiltrate their local country club and take the first steps towards destroying Howard's reputation. Once again, this isn't a montage that'll blow your socks off, but it did grab me by the throat the second I heard those funky flutes kick in. Dave Porter's score really shines here, and it gives this montage a mini heist-like feeling. All in all, an enjoyably suspenseful montage with some fantastic music. B tier. Mike replaces Nacho's safe. Not one of my favorite montages as Mike and his guys crack Nacho's safe and search his house. Not great, but not terrible either. It's just an alright montage that serves its purpose, but still overall kinda meh. C tier. Gus's security goes for a bike ride. A cold opener that follows Gus's covert security team as they take a brisk bike ride throughout the neighborhood. It's an interesting montage to see for the first time, but it acts more like a part 1 to the next montage we see later this episode. All things considered, an okay montage that pays off later. C tier. Welcome home, Mr. Fring. In this montage, Gus returns to his so-called home, still stressing about the boogeyman named Lalo Salamanca. Compared to his calm and collected self in Breaking Bad, Gus in this montage is still sweating over this $1 million smile. This montage also connects to the previous montage via the underground tunnel and puts us back into the house across the street with the same familiar faces seen earlier in this episode. The music is also worth mentioning, but it's mainly the visuals that satisfy. Altogether, this is a slow but intriguing montage showcasing how complex Gus really is, and also adds more context to Breaking Bad. B tier. Ziegler slide ruler montage. It's a pretty cool process to see the ruler encased, but not too enjoyable in my opinion. C tier. Howard's morning routine. A nice change of pace seeing a somewhat cheery montage solely focused on Howard. From just this short-lived montage, you get an idea of what Howard's home life is like, and it's easy to infer it's not a happy one. Despite its glossy exterior, this montage is actually pretty sad when you have all the context. The cappuccino reeked of desperation for sure, but hey, the man was trying his best, am I right? In short, this is a dreary montage disguised as a delightful one, with music that perfectly suits Howard and his personality. B tier. The Perfect Day montage. A sadly tragic montage as Jimmy and Kim are forced to act normal after the craziest night of their lives, juxtaposed with Mike and his crew cleaning up Lalo's mess. Yet another hauntingly beautiful montage filled with powerful visuals that say a lot without saying anything at all. The music is a somber but eerie rendition of Harry Nelson's Perfect Day, and it was the perfect song to illustrate Kim and Jimmy's freshly drawn trauma. With the last episode being extremely stressful, this episode opens up on an immensely depressing note with this marvelous montage. This is undoubtedly one of the show's greatest montages, even though it makes me want to curl up into a fetal position and rock myself to sleep. S tier. Gene channels Slippin' Jimmy. In an attempt to get Jeff off his back, Gene slips into the skin of his old persona and engages in some classic chicanery. Easily one of the series' most vibrant montages despite being in black and white. It's also visually reminiscent of the inflatable montage from season 2, and it's fun seeing how energetic this montage is even though it's devoid of all color. I absolutely love the music in this montage, and ironically, the song is called Jim on the Move by composer Lalo Schifrin. The track Jim on the Move was also featured on the Mission Impossible soundtrack, and it's why this montage has such a heist-like feeling to it. And the track also fits Better Call Saul like a glove. Overall, an excellent montage and another one of my personal favorites. S tier. Gene Breaks Bad. Following a painful phone call with Kim, Jimmy slips back into old habits to numb his heartache. This magnificent montage has some excellent visuals, coupled with some immaculate music that I haven't stopped listening to since the show ended. This acoustic cover of Tapicoa Tundra is my favorite aspect about this montage. Not only does the song have many implications on a subtextual level, but those implications could be interpreted in many different ways. By default, Tapicoa Tundra is known for being a fast-paced song, but hearing it acoustically illustrates that Jimmy's no longer having fun with this life. He's merely using it as a distraction so he'll never have to focus on his true feelings. And it's pitiful watching him make the same mistakes. In closing, another great montage that'll have its jersey hung up in the rafters. S tier. And at last, we've reached the end. Looking back at our list here, we've got 12 S tiers, 10 A tiers, 16 B tiers, and 11 C tier montages, which leads us to a whopping total of 49 montages in Better Call Saul. If you made it this far, thank you so much for sticking around till the end, and let me know what your favorite Better Call Saul montage is down below. If you enjoyed this video, please sure to leave a like to support what I love doing most, and if you like drinking water, hit that subscribe button.
Well, I'll get going then. Thanks.